Hello everyone, I am Sanket Singh and welcome back to my channel. So guys, I'm pretty sure if you are a subscriber of this channel or maybe this video got recommended in your particular feed, then you are definitely somebody who is really interested in the world of software development. A lot of softwares that you technically nowadays see have got a dedicated authentication system included in them. What's an authentication system? In an authentication system, you will actually see that you as a user are able to actually sign up to a platform or then log into a platform, log out to from a platform, and so on. This whole sign up, login, log out mechanism, this actually exists as the authentication system. Right. Authentication system actually helps a user to identify themselves or uniquely on a system so that the system can check whether the user is a valid user of the platform or not. And then based on user's own profile can actually show them the recommendations, the details, the profile and whatnot. Now, a lot of times it becomes kind of like a bit tricky to actually set up an authentication system yourself, because a lot of times there are a lot of things that you have to manage in an authentication system. You need to manage this end-to-end sign up flow, you need to manage the login flow, then you have to first of all decide whether you want to go with a session based auth, you want to go with a token based auth or whatnot. Apart from that, you have more intricacies, like you have to handle the logout mechanism, you have to handle the reset password mechanism, you have to handle the email confirmation mechanism, and lot more. So a lot of people actually feel like if you will see, let's say, any free courses or any paid courses, they will definitely have a dedicated part of discussing authentication mechanism because it's a topic in itself. Now, what we are going to do in this particular video is I'm going to help you to actually make an end-to-end authentication system. And trust me, I'm going to make this easy for you. I'll be showing you a coding demonstration where I will talk about that how you can actually use a brand new platform as a service, which is Back4App, using which you can make an authentication system kind of like in just 10 odd minutes or 15 odd minutes. If you have your front end ready and you know what kind of an authentication you want, this is going to be a superpower for you. Back4App is a platform where you can actually make your own backend as a service and you can do a lot of things there. Right? If you want to host a particular database or you want to have some APIs exposed on top of that database, if you want to have an authentication system based backend on let's say on your backend part or backend infrastructure of your application, everything can be done end to end with Back4App. This is a very cool backend as a service, and we are going to see that how using Back4App you can make your own authentication system in just like, let's say, 10-15 minutes. And I'm going to explain you line by line what I'm doing. I'm not just going to show you like what functions you have to technically call. I'm going to show you line by line what are the things that we are going to do. I already have a front end demonstration already prepared with me so that we don't waste our time on the front end aspect, and we'll just right away start integrating the Back4App authentication backend, and we will see if things are working for us or not. So without any further delay, let's just start. But before starting the video, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing it. We are going to put some really awesome tech content coming up ahead on the channel. So let's just start.
Okay, so let's start our analysis and actually let's start looking at how you can actually prepare an end-to-end authentication backend without even messing up with a lot of backend related code and without actually taking a lot of deep dive into how exactly you're going to set up the backend. Why? Because we are going to use Back4App. Back4App is a cloud platform that can give you backend as a service, right? You will be able to avoid any kind of writing manual backend logic here, and you will be able to actually deploy end-to-end applications, right? You already know authentication system is a pretty complex system end-to-end to build yourself. You have to manually set up the user related database interactions. You have to set up the whole flow for signing up the user. You have to set up the whole flow for sign in and log out of the user and whatnot. But all of these kind of technical details in your backend can be actually taken care by Back4App. Back4App is going to be your end-to-end solution using which we will be able to create our authentication system as well. And for this demonstration, I have a very simple sample front end already prepared with me. Right. So what you can do is I'll of course drop the link of all of these important repos and documentation in the description section below. But you can go to this particular URL, github.com/myprofile/back4app starter app. Okay. Here you are going to get a sample React project, which is a kind of like a starter project where I have already coded a very simple kind of a UI, which has got a couple of forms for your sign up and login, right? I'll also show you how this whole UI technically looks like. So you can see I have this on my local machine. I'll turn up my React server and this is it. You can see this is the application altogether. You can see this is the sign up page. If you go to /login, you'll be able to go to the login page, right? And you also have a forget password page as well, right? So there are a couple of pages that I have already implemented, right? So this is like, but just plain UI, okay? There is no actual logic that is working behind the scenes as of now that can actually help us to do an actual user sign up, an actual user login or log out, or maybe reset password altogether, right? So if I just actually help you to go through the code base, you can see this is the code base. What you can do is you can just come to this GitHub URL and just clone it from here. You can just clone it from here, and in your local machine, just do npm install so that you have all the relevant dependencies for the starter project already installed in your machine. If you carefully see, this is a very simple React project. I have not done a lot of CSS or anything altogether. You can see most of these CSS are empty, right? I'm using Tailwind for the basic styling. And you can see there is a main.jsx file which is rendering our app component. Inside the app component, we have the browser router, inside which we have multiple page routes. We have a sign up page, login page, and more. Each page is actually represented in the form of a component, and I'm using Formic for any kind of form validation altogether. Okay, so it's a pretty simple, I would say, app. You can see this is the logical part. This is here coming up the logical part where you can see there is a simple form and there is some form validations that is technically going on here. And once you technically submit the form, you can see on submit, we have a couple of handler function like handle sign up. You can see this is a handle sign up function. Similar to login, I have a handle login function as well. Similar to this, I have a handle reset password and so on. So you can see there are multiple handler methods for each and every individual form that we have on our page. Okay. But if you submit these forms, nothing is eventually going to actually happen because there is no actual logic. Yes, there are all the states and everything for each form that is actually going to do form validation. But apart from that, there is no, I would say, logical piece. That means there is no front end to back end interaction as of now going on. This is just a front end app, and you can see it looks more or less good. We have a simple form here. Now, what we are going to do is to connect this, I would say, front end application, we are going to create an end to end backend using Back4App. And trust me, this is going to be a super simple process, specifically for authentication system. Because what Back4App is going to do for you is that most of the services that you are going to create in the backend will definitely require some kind of an authentication mechanism. So Back4App already does a lot of things for you. Let me show you a quick demo altogether. So what you can do is you can go to back4app.com, right? You can go to this particular website, back4app.com, and then from back4app.com, you can try to log in. Okay. So you can see I've already logged in from my GitHub account, right? You can go and log in from any particular account that you want. You can click on build new app, right? Once you click on build new app, you can see you can either use this prompting tool to actually use the AI related features that are already integrated in Back4App to create a sample backend for you. This is a very cool feature. And let's say if you want to create, let's say, some kind of a simple CRUD app like a to-do app, or let's say a video streaming service kind of like an app, these kind of applications, you can just give a dedicated prompt that what kind of an application you want. And then based on that, all the database interaction, all the relevant APIs and everything, this is going to automatically create for you. But for now, I'll show you the manual process. So you can see there are three different options apart from that coming up, that you can launch a backend as a service, or you can launch some dedicated containers, or you can use AI for your dedicated deployment. I'm going to click on build backend. Okay, I'm going to give my application a name. So I'll say authentication backend starter. Okay, this is going to be the name of my application. Now I also have got option to choose the database, what kind of a database that I want inside this particular backend app. And once I choose it, Back4App is going to take care of that. It's all automatically going to instantiate a new database server for us based on whatever database we have chosen. For now, you have a NoSQL database and a PostgreSQL database option available. If you click on no, let's say we click on NoSQL database and click on create, and that's it. Now what it is going to do, it's going to define everything for you. It's going to prepare a database server, it's going to prepare an application layer for you, it's going to prepare all the relevant auto scaling mechanisms for you, end to end everything it is going to give you. And the best part is, if you want to make an authentication system work, then you can see it is also giving you a dedicated user collection. If you carefully see in the database part, you have a user collection. This user collection already has a lot of properties like the access control list or authentication related data, username, created ad, password, email, a lot of data it is already like having, right? This collection is automatically created for you by Back4App. You do not have to make any effort in setting up the database. You do not have to make any effort in actually setting up the APIs that your front end is going to call. Nothing you have to do. Okay, so you can see with this much effort, we have actually our backend set up and running. Now, all we have to do is we have to integrate this particular backend with our front end. Okay, let's see how we can do that. Let's see how we can do that. So let me show you with a demonstration. So what you can technically do is, let's say this is your React app. This is your React app. Okay. From your React app, what you will be technically doing is, this is your back for app backend. Now, when I say back for app backend, then this is going to be the complete backend infrastructure that back for app is going to create for us. Inside this infrastructure, there is everything. There is API layer, there is the DB layer, right? Any kind of an auto scaling that we need to do, any kind of a auto scaling that we need to do, everything is technically included inside this back for app backend altogether. We do not have to care about it. We do not have to bother about it. And this is our React app, which is technically the front end. Now, what we are going to do is, from our React app, we are going to just directly make API calls to our back for app backend, right? This whole backend infrastructure is going to expose a couple of APIs, and then we can use this APIs to actually make some request and then correspondingly receive some response. Now, interestingly, back for app actually uses a very powerful tool called as the parse SDK. Okay, so I believe a couple of people might have heard about parse SDK. If not, then you can see this is the parse SDK for JavaScript. There are multiple parse SDKs for other languages available as well. What parse SDK actually helps you to do is, it actually helps you to connect to kind of like a parse server backend from different languages altogether. You can read about the parse platform here. You can see parseplatform.org, the complete application stack. So this is kind of like an I would say end-to-end application stack that is given to you. And in order to communicate to this application stack, you have a parse SDK, which is just a couple of set of functions that you can just install with the parse JavaScript SDK in your project and then make those function calls, right? It's going to actually give you an end-to-end interface for user authentication, notifications, etc. And back for app uses this. So that means in order to interact with back for app backend for our authentication purpose, it becomes even more easy. You do not have to make dedicated network calls, XML HTTP request, fetch request, exiles request, put URLs here and there, define the type of the HTTP request. All of those things you do not have to do, because there is a tight integration with parse. What we can do is we can use the parse SDK directly in our front end and make a couple of function calls, and all of our authentication mechanism is going to be sorted. Let's see how we can technically do that. So you can go to this documentation of back for app. You can see backforapp.com/docs/react/quicksart. And here you can see there is a dependency installation that they are asking us to do. That is to install parse. Here they are using yarn, but we can use npm as well. So what I'll do is I'll come to my React project and I'll say npm install parse. The moment I do this, you can see parse has been installed. And if you go to package.json, you can see parse has been installed. Now, one more thing that I would like to do is I would like to make a new branch. Let's say I'll call it as auth branch. Okay, so that you can see the solution of the authentication part apart from the master branch, right? Properly. So you can see we have technically installed parse inside our application. Now, what do we need to do is we need to configure parse. In order to configure parse, we need a couple of API keys. Where do we get those API keys from? So if you come back to your back for app, I would say dashboard, you can see for the application that you have created, there is a option of API. The moment you click on API, you can see there is going to be a lot of documentation links that you can find. You can click on any particular documentation like React Native, JavaScript, whatever you want, and you will get the relevant documentation that you need. Any documentation that you're going to go to will actually ask you to have two keys. One is a app ID and one is a language specific key. For example, in our case, JavaScript. Okay. So what we can technically do is we can come to app settings. We can click on security keys and you can see there are two important keys. One is a app ID. One is a JavaScript key. Don't worry, I'm going to delete this app. So these keys are not going to be usable by you. So you technically need to create your own I would say backend server on back for app to make sure that you are able to use the application. But for demonstration purpose, let's move ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this application ID. I'm going to take this application ID and add it to my environment variables. How I can do that? So you can see there is a dedicated .env file. I'll maybe recreate this. Okay. So all you can do is you can just go create a new .env file. This is going to get our all the environment variables. Now, because I have prepared this React app using Vite, I'm going to say Vite app, or I would say app key is equals to, we'll put the key here, and one more wheat JS key. So the second key that we need is the JS key. So from here you can get the JS key, and that's it. That's it. So you can see both the app key and the JS key, both of the keys are actually present inside our environment variable file. Now, once we have done this, now what we can do is we can make sure that we are using these keys to actually initialize a new parse object to actually interact with our parse authentication backend inside back4app. We need to create a parse object altogether. This parse object, whenever you want to create it, will need an app key and a JS key in order to instantiate a new parse instance, and this is going to actually help you to call multiple methods that will actually help you to do the authentication system. So let's start actually calling our parse constructor to actually create a parse object altogether. Okay, so now to create the parse object, what I'm going to do is I'll go to my main.jsx, because this is the file that will be first loaded before any of the components starts rendering. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import parse. So I'll say import parse from parse SDK, right? And what now you can do is you can actually create a parse object. You can create a parse object by saying parse.initialize, and here you are going to give your app ID or app key and the JS key. Now, how can we get the app key and JS key? We can say import.meta.env. So here we will be able to access our environment variables, and we can put app key here, and the second one will be the JS key that we are going to put, and that's it. This is going to actually initialize a new parse object for us. Now, once done, what we are going to do is we are going to put a parse server URL. So parse object also expects which server do you want to hit. So parse server is going to hit the back4app server. So you can say parse dot server URL. So there is a property server URL, and here what you can do is you can mention the server URL for back4app. That also we can add in the environment variable. So I'll say wheat server URL is equals to https:// parse api.back4app.com, and we are going to take this here, import.meta.env.white server URL. You can see this URL also comes up, and that's it. Your parse object is up and running, right? In your I would say current session, whenever you will load the application, you will be having a brand new parse object available, and you can use this parse object across your whole application altogether. Now, for example, we have sign up here, right? Now, what do we need to do? If you go to sign up, if you go to login, you can see you have different methods that I have already created for you. You can see there is a handle login method. For password reset also, there is a handle password method altogether. Now, what do you need to do? You need to actually just fill up this particular part. You can see everywhere I have just added a small to do, that you have to add your logic here in order to get started with your parse implementation altogether. So now what we are going to do, we are going to go step by step. First, we will implement the sign up part. Then we are going to implement the login part, and maybe the handle password reset part can be something that you can do as a take home assignment. So let's start implementing our sign up logic first using the parse SDK. Cool. Now let's open our sign up component. You can see we have a handle sign up function where we have a to do implement user sign up. Okay. Now, how do we implement the user sign up? For implementing the user sign up, you can see what the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to import parse. So we can say import parse from parse. Okay. And then what we are going to do is we are going to create a brand new parse user object. So every parse instance is going to give you a user object. So if you do await parse dot user, okay, if you do parse dot user and call this is going to give you a user instance. So const user is equals to await parse dot user. Okay, this is going to technically give you a brand new user instance. Okay, so parse has a user class, you will be able to create the instance of that class. Now inside this user you can set multiple properties, like whatever properties you have in your backend. If I go back to the database, you can see you have properties like username, email, password, all of these properties you have, right? So you can set those properties. You can say user dot set, and then the key is going to be username. And where do we get the username from? If you carefully see here, we have schema validation, and here we are passing a values parameter in handle sign up. If you see here, you can see we are going to pass the values parameter in the handle sign up. So we are going to say values dot username, and this is going to set the username for us. Similarly, we are going to say user.set email, and we are going to set the email, and we are going to set the password as well. So all the user related properties that you want to actually send to the backend in the sign up call, you are going to set that in the user object. Once done, then I'm going to come to my try part, and here I'm going to say user.signup. So every user instance of my parse SDK has a sign up method. The moment you call this sign up method, this is going to help you sign up the user or create a brand new user instance altogether. Okay. Once done, then inside this user object, you are going to have a session token, because back for app uses parse SDK, and by default there you have a session based to authentication system altogether. So what you can do, you can store this session token inside your local storage. So I can say local storage dot set item, and I'll say session token as user dot get session token. Okay, so what this is going to do, the moment this sign up call is complete, inside the same user object there will be a session token that will be set by parse, and we can fetch that session token and store that inside our local storage. And that is it. This is the only thing that you have to do. You do not have to care about how will you set up the sessions, how will you set up the database, how will you set up the backend, what APIs do you want to expose. Nothing. It's just like making a few function calls from the parse SDK, and your sign up will be done. Let's see whether it is working or not. So let's try to run our server npm run dev. Okay, and if I go here, okay, you can see, let's put a username in place. So I'll say Sanket admin user. Email, I'll say Sanket admin user @gmail.com. Okay, this will be the email that I'm going to put, and the password, let's say simple 12345 6, simple password I'm going to keep. The moment I click on sign up, if you carefully see the logic, if the sign up completely works, we are going to get navigated to the home page. Let's see if that happens or not. The moment I click on sign up, let's see if the network call is working. Okay, let's put this here, let's click on sign up. Okay, cool. So you can see no network call is going. Let's just quickly debug what is the issue here. Right, so you can see we have a form handle sign up, looks good. Okay, and if I just quickly refresh maybe, and let's put it again, Sanket admin user @gmail.com. Okay, cool. Let's see if our application's local storage has something. Okay, and you can see a couple of keys are there, but there is no session token. So I believe the network call is not going. Let's try to debug why the network call is actually not going altogether. So there is just a small bug. If you carefully see, there is a small warning as well coming up, which says we are calling a new user without like whenever we do new user here, parse dot user, we are not calling it with a new. If you carefully see here, you can see we are not calling it with a new, we need to call it with a new. So we'll say await new parse dot user. Okay, let's do that, and let's refresh. Let's try to use it now. You can see that warning is gone, and now I'll say sanket sanket admin user @gmail.com. Password, very simple password I'm going to keep, and I'll click on sign up. You can see it says signing up, and we are on the home page. If I go to my application local storage, you can see we have a session token present here. And interestingly, if you go to the back for app dashboard here, and if you just refresh the dashboard, you can see there is a quick refresh button. If you refresh, you can see there is a brand new entry with the username Sanket admin user. You can see the password string, this is by default hidden here, right? Email you can see here, and if you want to add few more columns, you can directly add it, because of course it's a NoSQL, so you do not have any restriction on the schema. And you can see different ACL, I would say you have present here an object ID, that is a unique user identifier is present. When it is updated, everything is actually present here, and you are able to actually make a user sign up on your platform and get an authentication token, that is a session token, in front of you as well. You can see pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You don't have to make a lot of effort in order to make a sign up flow. Otherwise, if you would have been doing this yourself, you have to boot up, let's say, a brand new backend server in, let's say, Ruby, Python, Node, whatever technology you want to do. You have to set up a couple of APIs in which you will be accepting some request. Inside these requests, you will be taking the password, then you will be encrypting the password, storing the password in the database, setting up the database layer. You'll be doing all of that yourself. But all of that effort is technically done already by Back4App, and you can see the result is in front of you. Okay, now let's see how we can implement this logout logic. Now, what is happening is the moment you sign up, Back4App is also signing you in as well in the application. You don't need to separately sign up and then again sign in. The moment you successfully sign up, it will also help you to sign into the application as well. Now, let's see how we can log out our user. Logging out is very easy with Back4App. You can see there is a home.jsx because we are on the home page. Here we have a method handle logout. We can add our logic here. Okay, so what we can first of all say is we can say let's import parse, import parse from parse, and we can say parse dot user. Okay, parse dot user dot logout. So there's a logout method. Okay, parse dot user dot logout. So if we call this method, then what it will do is it is going to remove the current session of the user, and we can also remove the session token from our local storage. That's it. And then what we can do is we can navigate ourselves to slash login. We can navigate ourselves to slash login. The moment you do it, okay. Now, if I click on logout, you can see the session token is gone and we are back to the login page this time. As simple as that. This is the only effort that you have to do if you want to make a user logout. Now, similarly, if you want to make a user login, if you carefully see, there is a login.jsx page as well, inside which we have a handle login method, which is going to handle the form submission of the login form. Here we can add our login instruction altogether. How can you make a user login? Let's see. So you can say const user is equals to await parse.user. Now inside parse.user, you have a login method. Inside the login method, you can send the username and the password because username is the unique identifier that we have kept here, and the password is going to be the authentication mechanism. We can get the username and password from values property, and we should technically import parse here. So I'll say import parse from parse, save it, and you can see with this particular line, we will be able to log in to our backend. Okay, so this should be dot login. This method dot login. Okay, now once the user is logged in, what we should do is we should take the session token from the user object and store it inside our local storage. So we are going to say local storage dot set item session token, and we are going to get the session token from the user object, and then we are going to navigate to the home page. That's it. The moment you do that, now let's try to log in. So we'll say Sanket admin user is the username. Password I'll keep 123456 and I'll click on login. The moment I do that, you can see the session token is back and we are again on the home page. If you log out, we are back on the login page. As simple as that, right? And you can see everything around what APIs to expose, how to store the data in a secured fashion, right? What all properties do you want to store, how you should scale the backend. Everything is end to end handled by Back4App. You don't have to bother a lot around making these kind of applications because authentication system is something that is very widely used across multiple applications. So it is not going to be a new logic that you are going to build. It's just going to be some redundant effort. So why do you want to do that? You can focus on making your own application logic and making sure all of these behind the scenes can be handled by database as a service, backend as a service that is given to you by Back4App, right? So I believe you got some idea. And if you want to read more about it, you can again go to your Back4App, I would say dashboard. You can click on API and you can read any documentation. For example, if you want to connect through, let's say, React Native, you can click here and you can see how you can connect React Native to your application, where you can get your API keys from, what all methods are technically available, so on and so forth. Now, I have a task for you. This task is going to make sure that you read the documentation, explore the whole world of Back4App, and actually try to implement a few features on your own. You can see inside our application, we have a forgot password page as well. The logic of the forgot password page is technically present inside password reset.jsx component. And here I have already added a to do for you. Now, what you have to do is you have to think what logic you can actually implement using the parse SDK inside Back4App that can help you to reset the password of the user. Think about it, try to implement it. This is going to be a fun exercise. You can Google it. There is a lot of documentation that has been provided by Back for App and Parse SDK. So documentation is not going to be a problem for you. All you need to do is just do some hands-on, try a few things here and there, and you will be able to implement this feature. And with this feature, you will be able to also explore a lot of different possibilities that you can have with Back for App. Let me just quickly, let's say, push this code on the branch. So if you see, currently we are on the auth branch. So I'll say git add all, git commit -m, added auth, git push origin auth branch. So if you want to see the final solution, you can go to the auth branch of my GitHub repo here, refresh, you can see. So there is now an auth branch. You can go to the auth branch and you can see the commits of the auth branch. The second commit of the auth branch will be having all the code logic that I have added. That is absolutely nothing. I've just installed the Parse SDK, and wherever I want to log out, I just call parse.user.logout. Whenever I want to log in, I say parse.user.login. Whenever I want to just sign up, I just create a new parse user and then just sign up. As simple as that. So go through this commit, go through this project, and try to implement this handle password reset features. I will be looking forward to your pull request that maybe I can merge with the branch, and you will be able to actually raise a few feature requests as well. That being said, let's wrap this particular video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this particular tutorial and are actually excited about what all different things you can actually make using Back for App. So I would highly recommend you guys to check out the Back for App platform and try to make some nice backends and integrate them with some stunning front end that you can make on your own. Till then, take care. Bye bye. I'm Sanket Singh, signing off.